We live in a quiet neighborhood in a small town outside Grand Rapids. Picture tidy little streets lined with maple trees, driveways full of bikes, American flags flapping lazily from porches. It's the kind of place where nothing bad ever seems to happen. That illusion shattered around mid-September last year. It started in Emily's bedroom. We'd moved her into the bigger upstairs room that used to be our guest bedroom. It had pink wallpaper with little white clouds, the kind of thing she loved. I remember how excited she was to pick out curtains with stars on them, arrange her stuffed animals in a neat little row on her bed, and put glow-in-the-dark moons on the ceiling. It was hers now, a space of her own. At first, the changes were subtle. She started waking up at night, telling us she heard footsteps in her room when no one was there. I chalked it up to a kid's imagination. You know how they get, every creak is a monster under the bed. But she insisted. It wasn't just footsteps. She said things moved in the dark. I didn't take it seriously. One night, she came into our room around 2:30 a.m. Her eyes were puffy from crying. She said, "Daddy, someone was whispering in my ear while I was sleeping." I sat up and looked at Jess. We were both still half asleep. I got up, walked her back to her room, checked every corner, under the bed, in the closet. Nothing. I told her it was just a bad dream and that I'd leave the nightlight on. But 2 nights later, things escalated. We heard a bang so loud it shook the upstairs floor. Jess and I jumped out of bed and ran down the hall. Emily's door was wide open, and she was sitting in bed, frozen. Her little chest was heaving, her blanket twisted around her like a snake. Her bookshelf had toppled over, not just fallen, thrown. Books were scattered across the room, some with their pages torn out like someone had been searching for something in a panic. Her nightstand drawer was open. The cross that hung on her wall above the window, a gift from Jess's grandmother, was lying face down on the carpet. I looked at Emily. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just looked at me with these wide, glassy eyes, like she didn't even recognize me. I asked her, "Sweetie, what happened?" She whispered, "It told me to get out." I felt a chill crawl down my spine. My first real, gut deep fear. I picked her up and carried her out of the room. We let her sleep with us that night. The next day, Jess and I tried to explain it all away. Maybe the bookshelf wasn't anchored properly. Maybe she sleepwalked. Maybe the cross fell off the hook. All maybe. But deep down, we both felt something else. The air in that room, it was wrong. Heavy. Like walking into a space that wasn't yours anymore. Cold, even with the heater on. Then, the crosses started flipping. We had a few around the house, nothing super religious, just little things passed down from family. My wife's from a Catholic family, so there were a few in the hall, in the living room, and of course, in Emily's room. But they didn't stay the way we left them. We'd find them upside down. Not just in her room, either. In the kitchen, in the hallway, in the basement, even though we never hung one down there. One time I came home from work and found one stabbed into the drywall next to the staircase. I asked Jess if she was messing with me. She looked pale and dead serious when she said she wasn't. I started to lose sleep. I'd stay up late, watching the hallway through our baby monitor, the one we kept in Emily's room. Around 3 a.m. one night, I saw something that made my stomach turn. On the grainy screen, I saw her sit up in bed. Then slowly, she turned her head toward the camera, like she knew I was watching. But that wasn't what scared me. It was her smile. It stretched too wide, like her face was trying to mimic the idea of a smile without understanding what it meant. And her eyes, I swear to God, her eyes looked black on the monitor. No light reflected off them at all. Just 2 pits. I ran into the room, heart pounding, but when I got there, she was fast asleep, curled up, peaceful. And the monitor? The smile was gone. It showed her sleeping like nothing happened. I wanted to think I imagined it, that maybe the low-res screen glitched, but that image stayed burned into my mind. Then, she stopped being Emily. That week, she began talking differently. Her voice would dip lower, slower, more adult. She started drawing things. Black scribbles with red circles, crosses upside down, shadowy figures with long arms and wide, sharp teeth. One looked like a goat. One had no eyes. I remember holding one of her drawings in the kitchen while she sat at the table, eating cereal. I asked, "What's this one supposed to be?" She didn't look up, just said, "He's waiting for you to fall asleep." I felt sick. My hand shook. I wanted to tear the drawing up, but something in me couldn't. That's when we brought in help. I'll get into that in part 2, because what happened next still makes my skin crawl. If you're reading this, thanks for sticking through. I'm not trying to convince anyone. I just need to get it out. Something came into our house. and it went straight for our daughter. After Emily's voice started changing and the drawings got more disturbing, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. Something unnatural was happening. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was stress or some kind of mental break, but that didn't explain the things I saw with my own eyes. The objects moving, the crosses flipping, her voice going from that innocent little girl I raised to something wrong. I didn't want to say it out loud. I was afraid to, but just did. We were standing in the hallway outside Emily's room one night, whispering like two kids hiding from a monster. I said, maybe we should talk to a doctor. A real one. Just stared at the floor and whispered back, what if it's not medical? I didn't respond. I didn't have to. We both knew what she meant. She asked her cousin, Lauren, to come over the next day. Lauren's deeply religious. She's the kind of person who keeps a rosary in her glove box and reads the Bible every night. I never really took her seriously before, but when she stepped into Emily's room, something changed in her face immediately. She stood still for a moment, like she was listening to something we couldn't hear. Then she said, I don't want to be in here. She left without another word. That night, she texted Jess a contact for a man named Father Danvers, a retired priest who dealt with spiritual disturbances. I thought it sounded like some movie exorcist BS, until I saw what Emily did next. It was a Wednesday night. Jess was downstairs doing laundry, and I was putting Emily to bed. She had barely spoken all day, just stared out the window like she was waiting for something. I kissed her forehead and said, "Good night, Peanut." As I stood up, she grabbed my wrist. Her grip was ice cold. I looked down, and she wasn't blinking. She said, slowly and clearly, "There's a man in my closet." I froze. Her closet door was closed, not locked, just closed like usual. But I knew there was nothing in there. Still, her voice, it wasn't just afraid. It was calm. Too calm. Like she wasn't scared of him. Like he belonged there. I walked over and opened the closet. Nothing. Just clothes and toys. Then she said something I will never forget for the rest of my life. "He told me your father screams in hell." I turned back to her like someone had hit me in the chest. My dad passed away 4 years ago from cancer. Emily didn't even know we'd had a rough relationship. I never talked about that with her. But hearing her say that, with that dead expression, I felt the blood drain from my face. I didn't sleep at all that night. We called Father Danvers the next day. He showed up Friday morning. An older man in his late 60s, bald, with wire-frame glasses and a weathered face that looked like it had seen a lot more than he was willing to say. He walked into the house like he already knew what he was dealing with. He didn't make small talk. Just looked around quietly and then said, "Show me the room." When we opened the door to Emily's room, something weird happened. The nightlight exploded. Glass popped and rained down in a small burst. Danvers didn't even flinch. Just screamed, and I pulled her back, shielding her from the shards. Emily was lying on her bed, staring straight at the ceiling. Danvers knelt beside her. He said nothing for almost a minute. Then, quietly, he said, "She's not alone in there." That's when the air changed. The room dropped at least 10 degrees. I saw my breath. I swear to God, the shadows in the corners started to move, like they were breathing. Danvers reached into his coat and pulled out a small vial of holy water. The second he sprinkled it on Emily's forehead, her body arched off the bed. She screamed, not like a child. It was this guttural, animalistic noise that didn't even sound human. Her eyes rolled back, and her arms flailed, but not randomly. It was like she was trying to hit Danvers. And she almost did. I rushed forward to grab her shoulders, but she flung me back like I was made of paper. I hit the dresser so hard my back lit up in pain. Jess ran to me, crying, and Danvers just stood there, holding a crucifix, his face pale but focused. Emily's voice dropped so low it sounded like a growl. She spoke in a language I didn't understand. Harsh, raspy syllables. It didn't even sound like her anymore. Danvers shouted, "You are not welcome in this child. Leave her." Emily laughed. I swear to God, she laughed. This chilling, high-pitched cackle like something straight out of a nightmare. And then, everything went still. The air got warm again. Her body slumped back onto the mattress. Her breathing returned to normal. She looked asleep. Danvers turned to us and said, "We're not dealing with a spirit. This is something older, something darker. It's going to get worse before it gets better." Worse? I didn't even know how that was possible. But he was right. That was only the beginning. After that night with Father Danvers, our house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt watched. Even when Emily was asleep, you could feel it, something heavy in the air, like the house itself was holding its breath. The silence wasn't quiet, it was charged. like something waiting just out of view. Danvers gave us a list of things to do. Salt around all entrances, remove any mirrors from Emily's room, keep a crucifix above every doorway, and most importantly, never leave her alone, even for a minute. We followed everything to the letter, but it didn't matter, because Emily changed. She stopped calling us mommy and daddy. She just said, you. No warmth, no emotion. She never cried, never laughed, just stared at people like she was trying to read their thoughts. And she knew things, terrible things. She told Jess that her mother was going to die soon. 2 weeks later, Jess's mom had a heart attack. She told me that she'd seen me when I was 11, hiding in a shed after running away from home. That was something I never told anyone, not even Jess. She started drawing again, but this time it wasn't stick figures. It was us, dead, ripped apart in ways I don't even want to describe. One picture had me nailed to the wall with my eyes gone. Another had Jess with her mouth sewn shut and Emily, or something that looked like Emily, grinning while holding the needle and thread. We burned the pictures. They came back the next morning. Exactly the same. Same paper. Same placement on the floor at the foot of her bed. Danvers came every 2 days. He started performing small rites, reading scripture, blessing the room over and over. But it was like throwing water at a wildfire. One night, while he was praying, the bed lifted off the floor with Emily still on it. She didn't scream. She didn't even blink. She just smiled. And then she whispered, "I like it when you're afraid." The lights flickered and burst. All of them. Glass rained down, and Danvers was thrown across the room. I remember Jess crying in the hallway, covering her ears while I tried to keep Emily from floating any higher. I was screaming at her, begging her to stop, but she wasn't there anymore. It wasn't Emily. It was something wearing her skin. When the bed finally slammed back down, Danvers sat up coughing blood. He said we were beyond prayer, that we needed a full rite, a proper exorcism, but the church wouldn't authorize one unless we had proof. So we set up cameras. I bought 2 decent security cams and placed them in Emily's room, one facing her bed, the other aimed at the door and closet. The footage we got made my hands shake. At 2:44 a.m., the closet door opened on its own. A dark shape, almost like smoke, crawled out and hovered over her bed. At 2:46, Emily levitated again. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her arms bent backward at the elbows. Bent in ways they shouldn't. Her eyes rolled back and her lips moved fast, like she was speaking, but the mic caught nothing. At 2:49, the smoke shape entered her chest. She sat straight up, snapped her head toward the camera, and grinned. She waved. She waved at the camera. Then the video cut out. The footage was corrupted after that. The SD card fried, completely unusable. We tried again the next night. Same thing. Different hour, 3:06 a.m. this time. Her door opened by itself, and her body sat up without moving her arms or legs, like a puppet on strings. Her eyes glowed, literally glowed white for a second. She whispered something to the corner of the room, and then crawled off the bed upside down, like a spider. I'm not exaggerating. Hands and feet on the ceiling. I watched my daughter crawl across the ceiling like gravity didn't apply to her anymore. The camera caught all of it. That was enough for Danvers. He sent the footage directly to his contacts. He said it would be a fight to get approval, but the demon wasn't hiding anymore. It wanted to be seen. We were past the point of help. That night, I was brushing my teeth in the upstairs bathroom when the mirror fogged up without any steam. I hadn't run hot water yet, but still, fog rolled across the glass like someone exhaled on it. And then, words started appearing in the condensation, written by an invisible finger. "You're next." I screamed and dropped the toothbrush. The mirror shattered. Not like it cracked, it exploded. Glass flew into my face, cutting just above my eye. Jess rushed in and saw the blood, saw the pieces everywhere. We both just broke down right there on the tile floor. We couldn't live like this. We couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I started keeping a hammer next to the bed like that could stop whatever was in her. But the worst night, the one that broke me, came 2 days later, when I found her in the hallway at 3 a.m., standing outside our room, just watching us sleep. She didn't say a word. When I asked what she was doing, she turned slowly and said, "I wanted to see how peaceful you look before the fire." Then she smiled and walked back to her room. And when I followed her in, every single cross in her room, nailed to the wall, resting on the shelves, even the tiny necklace we kept on her nightstand, they were all upside down. not turned, grown that way. The wood itself had twisted, warped, impossible. And in the middle of her bed, scrawled in red across the blanket, were the words, "She's mine now." After the night of the mirror and the message on her blanket, I didn't sleep again. Neither did Jess. We took turns watching Emily. Not that it mattered. The moment we blinked, she was somewhere else. Sometimes in her room, sometimes in the kitchen, just standing there, barefoot and silent in the dark. The day after that hallway incident, Danvers came back, this time not alone. With him were two more people, Father Corwin, a grizzled old priest with a voice like sandpaper and hands that shook when he touched his rosary, and Sister Lena, a younger woman with deep-set eyes that looked like she hadn't slept in years. She didn't say much, just walked into the house with a bottle of holy water and started whispering prayers under her breath immediately. They were here to prepare for the full exorcism. We had 24 hours to get everything ready, which meant clearing out Emily's room. No toys, no furniture, no pictures. Nothing that could be used against us. And the closer we got to that night, the more violent she became. Jess was carrying boxes out of the room when Emily lunged at her. No warning, no sound. Just full sprint, knocked her straight into the wall. Jess hit her head so hard she blacked out. When I came running in, Emily was just standing over her, mouth wide open like she was screaming, but no sound came out. Her eyes were jet black. I'm not talking dilated pupils. I mean, no white. Just two holes looking back at me. I grabbed her and yanked her off Jess, but she didn't even flinch. She just stared at me and whispered, "You should have let her die." I still hear those words when I try to sleep. We locked her door that night. Not that it helped. At 2:03 a.m., the fire alarm started blaring. I jumped out of bed to the smell of burning plastic. The hallway lights were flickering, not like electrical flickers, pulsing, like someone was breathing through the wires. Smoke was pouring from under Emily's door. I kicked it open, and everything stopped. No smoke, no fire, just Emily, sitting in the middle of the room, calm as ever. She looked up at me with a crooked smile and said, "Gotcha." The carpet beneath her was burned in a perfect circle. I'll never forget the way Father Corwin reacted when he saw it the next morning. He didn't say a word. He just knelt beside the singed floor, closed his eyes, and whispered a Latin phrase I didn't understand, but I saw his lip tremble. He later told me that the circle was ritualistic, a summoning pattern, not a random burn. Whatever was inside Emily wasn't trying to hide anymore, it was trying to expand. The night of the exorcism, the house felt different. The air was thick, cold, but also oppressive, like it pressed against your chest every time you breathed in. The power went out around 6 p.m., so we lit the place with candles. It didn't feel comforting. It felt like bait. Emily was restrained to the bed, not tightly, just enough to keep her from lashing out. But when we entered the room to begin, she was already gone. Not physically, her body was still there, but you could see it in her face. She wasn't our little girl anymore. Her skin had gone pale. Her lips were dry and cracked. Her voice, when she spoke, it wasn't hers. "Welcome to my church," it growled, eyes rolling in opposite directions. "Shall we begin the sermon?" Father Corwin stood at the foot of the bed, clutching his crucifix so hard his knuckles went white. He started reciting scripture in Latin, commanding the demon to name itself. Emily laughed, and then screamed. Not like a child, not like a human. The windows shattered. Every one of them. The sound was deafening, glass exploding inward like a shockwave. Candles blew out. For a moment, everything went black. Then the crucifixes we'd nailed around the room began to spin on the wall. Just slowly at first, then faster. Faster. Every single one of them turned upside down. Emily's mouth opened wider than it should have, like her jaw dislocated. She whispered something that sounded like ancient gibberish, and then threw herself upward, snapping the leather straps that held her down like they were nothing. She levitated again. Her body arched backward in midair, toes pointed downward, head hanging, hair dangling like a marionette. Danvers was shouting now, shaking the holy water, flicking it toward her. Every time the droplets hit her skin, it sizzled. It burned her. And then she screamed, and everything changed. The ceiling cracked. Literally, a long, jagged fracture running from corner to corner, like something underneath it was trying to claw its way through. The air smelled like sulfur and rotting meat. The temperature dropped so fast my breath came out in thick clouds. I reached for Jess. She was crying, hands over her ears, begging it to stop. But Emily, no, the thing inside her wasn't done. She turned her head toward me, upside down, and spoke in my father's voice. "He's here now," it said. He wants to speak to you, son. My dad died 6 years ago. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then it screamed again, a deep, layered howl like dozens of voices at once, all pouring from her tiny throat. That's when Sister Lena grabbed the Bible and stepped forward, chanting with a force I didn't think she had in her. She shoved the crucifix to Emily's forehead. The skin blistered instantly. The demon shrieked and slammed into the bed, convulsing violently, writhing and twisting in ways that no bones should allow. She vomited black liquid that splattered across the sheets. It smelled like gasoline and death. And then it spoke one word. Abaddon. The room went dead silent. Father Corwin paled. He looked at Danvers and whispered, "This is not possession. This is infestation." And Emily, whatever was left of her, looked up at us with pure hatred and said, "You can't save her." I don't remember everything about that night clearly. Some parts are blurred in my mind like I've tried to block them out, but other moments, they're burned in. After that name, Abaddon, was spoken, something shifted in the house. Even Father Corwin went pale. He stepped back, lowered his crucifix slightly, and whispered to Danvers, "We weren't trained for this." Sister Lena didn't flinch. She kept chanting, pouring the last of the holy water onto Emily's bed. The liquid hissed and smoked, the sheets blistering under it like acid. Emily thrashed so violently that her body began to levitate again, but this time she didn't stop at a few inches off the bed. She shot up to the ceiling. Her back arched until it cracked. That sound was a deep, hollow snap that echoed through the room. And then she hung there, suspended, arms stretched out like a crucifix, eyes completely rolled back, mouth gaping open in an unnatural scream that made our ears ring. And then all the lights in the neighborhood went out. Not just our house, the whole street. We'd later learn from the neighbors that their clocks stopped at 3:15 a.m. None of their power came back for hours. And the power company found no explanation. No blown fuses. No grid issues. Just darkness. Inside that room, the floor began to rumble. Not shaking, pulsing, like a heartbeat under our feet. I held Jess tight as she sobbed into my chest. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even feel human anymore. Just this frozen, shattered thing waiting for something to finish us off. Emily's body slammed back down onto the bed with such force it cracked the wood frame. The cross above her flew off the wall and shattered on the floor. One of the shards spun in place like it was being twisted by invisible fingers. The air was freezing. I could see everyone's breath fogging the air, and I could smell something awful. Rotting meat. Open sewer. Burning hair. That's when Emily turned to me, and not with hate. With desperation. For the first time in days, her voice came through. "Daddy, help me. It's hurting me. It's burning inside me." I dropped to my knees. I'm here, baby. I'm not leaving." But then her body jerked again, and the voice was gone, replaced by that same demonic growl that sounded like it came from a cave miles underground. "She's mine now." Father Corwin shouted louder than I've ever heard a man yell, the crucifix held high in one hand, his Bible in the other. Sister Lena joined him, voice trembling but firm, speaking Latin so fast it sounded like a weapon. Emily's body began to levitate again, limbs dangling, head spinning slowly. And then, it happened. The thing inside her began crawling out. Not physically, spiritually. The room started to change. The wallpaper peeled back, revealing blackened walls underneath. The corners of the room seemed to stretch, like the geometry of the house was warping. The ceiling pulled higher. The windows disappeared, and standing in the shadows behind Emily's bed was a figure. Tall, thin, completely black, like it was made of smoke and bone. Two piercing red eyes that didn't blink. It just watched. Father Corwin stopped. He was frozen, eyes wide, muttering prayers under his breath like a broken record. The demon stepped forward. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. But Sister Lena, God bless that woman, she ran toward it. She threw holy water directly at the shadow, and it screamed, recoiling like it had been shot. The shadow recoiled and collapsed into smoke, vanishing into the ceiling like it had been sucked into the void. Emily dropped to the bed. Hard. She started convulsing, screaming, crying, choking. Black liquid poured from her mouth and nose. Father Corwin found his strength again and rushed forward, placing both hands on her head, shouting in Latin so powerfully I could feel the vibrations in my chest. The room was a whirlwind, books flying off shelves, the bed shaking like it was in an earthquake, the smell of burnt wood and blood overwhelming everything. And then, just like that, it stopped. Silence. Total, deafening silence. Emily's chest was rising and falling. Her eyes were closed, and her lips moved. "Daddy." I crawled to her side. I don't know how I got there, but I did. I held her hand. It was warm again. The color came back into her cheeks. She blinked and looked up at me. What happened? I broke down. I mean, completely lost it. Just did too. We clung to her like we were afraid she'd vanish. Danvers sat on the floor against the wall, drenched in sweat, whispering to himself. Sister Lena collapsed and had to be helped out of the room. Father Corwin stayed with us until sunrise, praying quietly while Emily slept in our bed. That was 6 months ago. Emily doesn't remember any of it. Just vague nightmares and a fear of her old room. We don't let her go near it. We had it blessed, repainted, even remodeled, but it still feels wrong. Like the air's heavier in there. Like something's watching. I'm not religious. I never really was. But now, I pray every night. Because whatever came through that crack, whatever was in her, I don't think it's gone forever. Sometimes when I walk past her door at night, I hear the doorknob click. And once, just once, I swear I saw it turn on its own. If you're a parent and reading this, never ignore the signs. Never brush off strange behavior as just a phase. Because evil doesn't knock. It waits. And when you're not looking, it walks right in.